Let's get this sports podcast party started, all right?
The JAYREELZ podcast.
What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic, in excellent spirits. It's almost time to say goodbye to September, but not before I get puh-lenty off my chest, as the sports world has me cranky, tight, and downright pissed off, as this is the JAYREELZ podcast with JAYREELZ. For my first timers, welcome aboard, and for those who've been banging with me going back to the very beginning, somewhere in the middle or even as early as this past Thursday, I welcome you guys and gals back. And just some housekeeping before I begin. For starters, I understand the Mets season is over, and trust me, I'm going to get to that in a moment. But for those who remember Shea Stadium, for those who never visited Shea Stadium, for those who want a little bit of a history lesson with a little bit of experience, seasoned all throughout a 23-plus minute video, well, go to the YouTube channel at JAYREELZ and you will see it. I posted it on Friday. It's gotten some pretty decent responses, which I appreciate. And I just want to get the word out to as many people as possible. So please send it to the baseball fan in your life, the Met fan, the sports fan. There's some little bit of Jets in there, a little bit of some rock and roll. Of course, the Beatles have a big figure in the grand scheme of things when it comes to Shea Stadium. So yes, if you could please do that, people, I would sincerely appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. And take a screenshot, send it to me on my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the JAYREELZ podcast, and we could go from there. That's number one. Number two is I am not a happy camper today. And I don't mean that in my life. Actually, I came off of a wonderful weekend celebrating my wife's birthday on Saturday, which we had a beautiful spa day, relax, massage, sauna, steam room, cold plunge, you name it. It was beautiful. Had a nice dinner, went out to a comedy show that night, then actually had brunch yesterday afternoon in between the Steeler win, which was barely, and I'm going to get to that later on, as well as the Met debacle, which you know I'm going to unpack. So we had that going on, and I bring that all up because it was a weekend that I was in and out. A lot of out than in. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to discuss here throughout the course of the next hour plus is mostly from what I've read, some highlights, etc. But I'm going to give you an overview on some of the things that I'm going to touch on throughout the course of this podcast. So it's not going to be as in-depth as normal. It's not going to be a situation where I'm going to break down every play or every particular angle of a certain game or moment, etc. So you have to please forgive me ahead of time, but I will share my opinion, share my thought, because it's more of a big picture thing. And obviously, since I've watched sports since birth, I could give you an opinion and some analysis on that. So for instance, if you're looking to say, JAYREELZ, what do you got to say about Alabama? Of course, I have my thoughts on them winning the game overall and what that means for the head coach and maybe for moving forward through the season. But as far as the nuts and bolts of the game itself, I'm not going to be able to expound on that because A, I didn't watch, and B, I don't want to give you an assessment for something that I didn't witness. Obviously, I was out Saturday night with the missus enjoying a birthday, so that is the reason why I'm bringing this up now, just to give you a little fair warning that what I am going to share in reference to my thoughts and feelings about certain things, you will get. But as far as just massaging and really getting into the soup to nuts of a particular game, etc., play-by-play, that unfortunately, I won't be able to spare. So I just want to forecast that now so you're at least well-versed as to what to expect here throughout the course of this podcast. All right, now that I got that out of the way, Major League Baseball, I have to start there, people. The playoffs begin tomorrow, wild card, the matchups are set, the schedule is already on the docket. You're going to have the 4 games, 1 o'clock Detroit at Cleveland, 3 o'clock San Diego at Chicago, the Cubs that is, 6 o'clock Boston at New York to play the Yankees. And then a nightcap at 9 p.m., the LA Dodgers, who are about to defend their World Series title from last year, they will be playing the Cincinnati Reds. And that's where I'm going to begin. Now, what I'm going to say here, I'm going to try to temper this as best as possible. Yesterday, I put out a live stream, pretty much an epitaph of the 2025 New York Mets. Please feel free to go back and watch it. I was out walking the dog. It was right during the gloaming when the sun was setting. And here I am yelling at the top of my lungs in these Bronx streets that I live in about how disgusted, how aggravated, and frustrated I am watching this team. But I knew what was going to happen pretty much since this time last week. It was no surprise. But before I even get into that, let me start here. Because I want to save the Mets for last before I even give you a preview of the baseball. Now, the teams that have gotten into the postseason, because we know on Thursday, the Tigers were in a free fall, who salvaged that series against the Guardians and were able to get into the postseason. They had a 3-0 lead on Friday night, and they lost in Fenway, but they did win on Saturday, which clinched the spot because the Astros were in a big-time free fall, and they are not in the postseason for the first time since 2016. So the run that the Astros have had, dating back to that year, 2017, when they won the World Series, I understand signs stealing and trash cans, etc. But their run of 4 pennants, 2 World Series appearances, now you have to wonder whether or not the window, I don't want to say it's closed, but it's slowly but surely closing. And you have Framber Valdez as a free agent. I don't know if the Mets are going to have to go after him, if you ask me, but that's for another day. And the Astros had punched their ticket to Cancun, as I'm sure they've already made their vacation plans here for early October. But the American League and how that unfolded, the Guardians did win a division on a walk-off day yesterday, and they had the tiebreaker over the Tigers, so it didn't matter. But with the Tigers just squeaking by, inching their way into the postseason, and yes, they don't have to worry about the epic collapse that they had endured from the early part of July, as I've detailed here over the last couple of podcasts, the 12.5 game lead that they had in late August, the 10.5 game lead they had not even a month ago. In fact, 4 weeks ago today, on Labor Day, they had a 10.5 game lead, and they squandered that, but they still made it into the postseason. And they're going to play the team that beat them 5 of the last 6 over the last 2 weeks of the season and wrestled the AL Central from their grasp to come out on top, as they will match up in the first game tomorrow. And again, I'll preview that in a moment. So you have Seattle and Toronto, the 2 teams that are the byes in the American League, where you already know the matchups for tomorrow's wild card in that league. Now, as far as the National League goes, you knew that it was Phillies and Brewers. They already had the 2 teams that had the bye. You're not going to see them till the weekend. The Dodgers, they already won the division, no sweat. All good, getting their pitching aligned for tomorrow night. Then you had the Cubs and Padres. They were pretty much the 4 and 5, it seemed like, for the last 2 months. And we know they're going to face off against one another tomorrow, 3 o'clock, Wrigley Field. All you had left was the Reds and the Mets. And I said this Friday, that even after the Mets won in Chicago, and they went into that Friday with a 1-game lead. And I thought to myself, thinking back to horrors of 2007-08, although it happened at Shea Stadium, again, quick plug, the vlog. I talk about that on the vlog. 07-08, loses to the Marlins. Last day of the season. But for the Mets, losing Friday night the way they did, just the fundamentals all over the place, unable to field the ball, get big hits. Brandon Sproat, you can't put it all on him. And the Mets lose and the Reds win, and next thing you know, they're in a flat-footed tie. And even with Clay Holmes, who had a 1-hitter, 6 innings, 78 pitches. He was supposed to throw 70 pitches. Mets win 5-0. The Reds win again. And all I said was, watch, going into Saturday's games, watch the Mets win and the Reds lose. So they were going to the final game, 162 yesterday, where they'll have the 1-game lead. And then they'll find a way to spit the bit, and then the Reds will win. And guess who gets the final spot? As it was, the Mets pitched Sean Manaea. No offense to him. And I get it, that when you don't really have a definitive starting pitcher for your final game of the regular season, you already know what direction that the game and your playoff hopes are going to go to. And for whatever the reason, this is baseball 2025. They want to orchestrate the game 3 hours before first pitch. And even though he struck out 2 guys and was facing a hitter who had 10 major league at-bats with runners on first and second, Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns in the front office decided that it was time to pull Manaea and start bringing in the bullpen. A bullpen that, let's face it, and not just them, but everybody else that's still left standing in October, are running on fumes. A bullpen that you could barely trust. Maybe Brooks Raley, who, by the way, got the loss yesterday. Maybe Tyler Rogers. Edwin Diaz, who came in the 5th inning and pitched 2 innings. The longest outing of any pitcher yesterday. And where was David Peterson? Now, okay, David Peterson has not pitched well down the stretch. I get it, 1,000%. And I'm sure there'd be a lot of people second guessing why David Peterson started the game. And Carlos Mendoza in the postgame did say that there were a lot of righties in the lineup, and he felt as if Peterson, and I guess his stuff velocity, was not going to be effective in order for him to last in any point of the game, whether he started or for long relief, middle relief, for one batter. Because Sean Manaea, who is left-handed, and I get it, he has the funky arm angle and the delivery, deceptive, etc. For whatever the reason, that was better than David Peterson. And again, I'm not exonerating Peterson by any means. But this is the front office, and unfortunately, the manager is going to be in the firing line, on the front line, to be questioned. Because if you ask me, and I understand it was a big risk and a gamble, but the guy has pitched in big games. And I understand you can't just bank on that. Last year in Milwaukee, when they absolutely had to win that game before going to Atlanta, we know what happened. And what did he do? He actually pitched 8 innings, I believe, of shutout ball in Milwaukee. And Milwaukee had won 5 games in the regular season against the Mets up until that point. And he was an all-star this year. I'm not going to quantify that right now. To me, so what? That was a million years ago at this point. And I get it that Peterson has had his struggles. And I've said it here on the podcast. When you think he's going to pitch well, he spits all over himself. And when you think, I don't know if he's going to have it today, he pitches well. But you know what? That's where you have to have the conviction of this pitcher, of this player, even if his confidence is shot, to say, what can you give me today? I'm starting you. You've been our horse all season. And I understand you're not Randy Johnson. You're not Sandy Koufax. Hell, you're not even Sid Fernandez. But you know what? What can you give me today? Can you go out and gut out 3 innings? It's the Marlins. And I understand they played well against you. And I get it, the matchups. Oh, they're righties. They have too many righties. Giancarlo Stanton's not in that lineup. Marcell Ozuna's not in that lineup. JT Realmuto's not in that lineup. D. Gordon is not in that lineup. Christian Yelich, I understand he bats left-handed, is not in that lineup. What gives? That's not Murderer's Row over there. So all of a sudden, no, we don't like the matchups, but we're going to start Sean Manaea, who's left-handed, by the way. That's where the manager is just out to sea. And again, it's not all him, it's the front office, because they're trying to manage these games before they're actually even played. And this is baseball again, 2025, which is a disaster. So now, the Mets season is falling apart. They give up the 4 runs there in the 3rd inning, and they had opportunities, 6th and 8th inning, but obviously did not cash in. And then just when you thought the leadoff batter, Ronnie Mauricio, gets walked, all right? He didn't try to hack at 3-0, which I'm sure he would have been, and he even took a 3-1 pitch. He's figured, you know what, let me get my pitch, I'm going to swing at it. No, a solo home run does you nothing there. Works out a walk. You like that. Cedric Mullins, who's been, listen, I thought he would be a guy that, the Mets, center field, they need a new face. He's been a disaster here. And not to put it all on him, that's small potatoes. David Stearns, I'm going to get to in a little bit. But for Mullins to come up and hit a ball deep to the warning track, but it was an out. All right, he gave it a ride. I understand it's still an out, but it wasn't as if he struck out meekly or he rolled into a double play, which, by the way, the next batter did, and that being Francisco Lindor. And there goes your season. While the Reds lose in Milwaukee. I mean, if it doesn't get any worse as a Met fan, if the Reds would have won the game, you would have been like, all right, well, we had no shot anyway. Cincinnati said, you know what? Remember what I talked about the other day, hot potato? Yes, we won the 2 games in Milwaukee. Yes, we've won the games we needed to win to put ourselves in a position at the tiebreaker because they won the season series 4-2. But you know what? No, in the last game of the season, we don't want it, Mets. Do you want the postseason to have it right there in front of you? And what did the Mets do? They didn't drop it. They didn't even try to catch it. The potato was up in the air and they did this. If you're watching on Spotify or YouTube, they looked up and then they looked down. And they saw it smashing on the floor where it was split in half and it opened up. And that's where the Mets' postseason hopes went to die. This was as gutless, as heartless of a regular season finale that I've seen in quite some time. And I understand we could go back to 2001 where Tom Glavine gave up 7 runs in a third of an inning. I can understand going back, Scott Schoenweiss, the 2 home runs, I believe it was Wes Helms and Dan Ugla, after the game was tied by Carlos Beltran in the 6th inning. Last game at Shea Stadium. I can understand that. But Ryan Church at least gave the ball a nice ride. Again, the vlog is detailed, highlights, clips, and everything. But to not show up, not have any fight, not scratch, claw, bite, do whatever it took. And I'm not trying to say that they quit. I'm not trying to say that they didn't try. I'm not trying to say that they just automatically gave up. But they showed you nothing. And I was hoping that, of all people, Ronnie Mauricio, a guy that I'm sure when he was at 3-0, he says, well, I don't have to take here. And he took strike. And at 3-1, I'm sure he wanted to hack in the worst way because baseball in 2025 is about hacking. It's not about a walk is as good as a hit. It's about trying to take a swing. But he took a walk. And maybe I thought for that quick second, that could be a sign, maybe. And all we need to do is get runners on base and just hope to get the tying run on base because the top of the order is about to come up. And I understand I'm making this a lot Met-centric, and I promise to land this in a couple of minutes. But just bear with me, people. So now, after that brutal defeat and all of the trolling Yankee fans, which I'm going to get to shortly, now we have an offseason to wonder, now what? What's next? What's going to happen? Let's start from the top. I don't think Steve Cohen's going to pull anything George Steinbrenner-esque. I'm sure he's unhappy today with the amount of money that he's put toward this payroll, the expectations through the roof, and an 83-79 record, which does not, by any means, cut it. Even if they did qualify for the postseason. But if they qualify, they qualified. They're in, but they're not. I don't know if they're going to do anything drastic. Right now, I'd have to say no. I think David Stearns is going to be all right. He may be on the hot seat, though. And whatever David Stearns is thinking about this offseason, number 1, maybe number 2 and number 3, stop it with the bargain basement free agent signings for lowly starting pitching. Can we start there? Please, no Frankie Montoses, no Griffin Cannings, although he was 7-3, he did pitch, he pitched fine, I'll give him that. But no, I don't want that, no. Now, I mentioned Framber Valdez. He's a guy that scares me because he's a guy that's hit or miss. When he's on, he's on. When he's off, he's way off. And I don't know if I want to invest a ton of money in a guy like that, considering that you do have the collective bargaining agreement expiring December 1st of next year. And who knows, that could be, we may not see baseball for a decade. But they're going to have to upgrade this pitching. And they cannot bank on the 3 young pitchers that all of a sudden next year, these guys are going to be penciled into the rotation. Now, Nolan McLean, yes, he deserves a spot. He's probably going to be a 2 right now, which is crazy to even say. But for Brandon Sproat and for Jonah Tong, you can't automatically pencil these guys in. You saw Jonah Tong. I don't know if he's ready for prime time just yet. He's showing you flashes, but at the same time, he's showing you And Brandon Sproat is probably in that same boat as well. And you may have a guy like Christian Scott coming back from Tommy John, who is supposed to be the prize jewel as far as the pitching prospects that the Mets have. So you may have another guy that could work your way into the rotation, depending on how his elbow responds and if he does have a killer camp. But for the front office, you got to get pitching. And maybe not big-time starting pitching, but you got to get reliable and pitching that you know is not only going to eat up innings, but has had a healthy track record, both physically and on the back of the baseball card, and a guy that you can rely on. None of this well, let's throw this on the wall and see if it sticks. A la Frankie Montas. That has a player opt out when you know he's going to opt back in. What, you think he's going to go elsewhere? If he goes elsewhere, he'll do us the biggest favor. That $17 million you don't have to worry about. But they got to get after big pitching. I don't want to hear about, oh, we need to have a lot of bullpen arms. Oh, well, that's how baseball isn't played in 2025. Oh, well, you know what? The analytics show you that the third timer on the lineup. Nonsense. I'm tired of that. I wish there was a team that could debunk that. I need an 85 Cardinals in my life where they're going to manufacture runs. And no, I'm not talking about the Cleveland Guardians. Because the Guardians, let's see what they do this postseason. Now, they went to an ALCS last year, but when they play against the big boys, they can't match. But I want to see a team that has speed, defense, pitching, and big-time pitching. That can lock you down, that can shut you down, that it doesn't matter what payroll, no matter how many all-stars you have on your team, that you could say, bring it on, because our philosophy is going to be better than yours, and we're going to show you. Now, I get it, the 85 Cardinals never won a World Series. Understood, but they had the blueprint. And it helped that they played in a cavernous ballpark and AstroTurf, which helped out because with that speed, balls in the gap, singles become doubles and doubles become triples. I get it. But my point is, I wish that the thinking of the stupid analytics would just say bye-bye. That everything has to be about launch angle and F-WAR and exit velo and all this garbage and spin rate. What about eye test? That guy's good. That guy pitches in big spots. That guy has stones of steel, granite, whatever. No, everything has to be about, oh, well, these numbers, and oh, well, he's not good after the seventh inning, or oh, well, these numbers show. All right, these numbers may show, but maybe he has something in his intestinal and testicular fortitude that can gut through these games. But you don't give these players and pitchers enough chance or enough of an opportunity to do so. All right, let me land this here. As far as what this team needs, I don't think the manager's going to go. I don't think the GM's going to go. But there needs to be a shakeup. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know how it's going to come about. But I'm going to say this. I would think right now, Jeff McNeil, Starling Marte is a free agent, so he's not coming back. Mark Vientos, there is a possibility. I would keep Beatty at third, left-handed bat. I'd keep Mauricio. Now, Mauricio, he's raw, but has ability. That's my second baseman. There's your infield. And Vientos, listen, I like Vientos a lot. Are you going to put him at first base? He's not a good third baseman. I got news for you. If Pete Alonso, and I'm going to get to him in a second, if Pete Alonso's not going to be on his team next year, then guess what? You better put a first baseman's bid on Mark Vientos right now and ship him to Port St. Lucie and have him take 1,000 ground balls from now until January 1st, and then let him rest, and then come back in February and take 2,000 more ground balls. Because if you want to keep him on your team because he's a good stick and a guy that you want to be because he's young and he's cheap, etc., then he better start fielding ground balls now. Because if not, he should be out of here too. And it's nothing personal. I like Vientos a lot. I really do. But the Mets got to do something because they're not going to trade, obviously, Soto, Lindor, Nimmo. I'm sure they would want to try to trade him. He got 5 years left on a $200 million or $160 million deal. That's not happening. And now, speaking of which, Pete Alonso. All right, I give it up. Your honesty, etc., fine, all good. But before you can even get your uniform off and in the showers, did you have to come out and say that, yeah, I'm opting out of my deal this year. I'm going to become a free agent. Oh, I love being a Met. We got to see what happens, blah, blah, blah. And then when asked, oh, are you going to opt out? Yeah, yes, I am. Your team just went through the ringer. Your fan base, I'm going to be blunt, just got kicked in the nuts over this. A fan base that drew over 3 million in that ballpark where the owner came out and said, you guys, support us, get out to the ballpark. And they did in droves. And again, kicked right in the nads. And I get it. The honesty. You got to appreciate that, whatever. Fine. But could you have said, listen, guys, this has been a brutal loss, tough season, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to answer that in the days to come. And then you want to answer it, fine. That was similar to Soto after the World Series. Well, there's 30 teams that want me, blah, blah, blah. Nonsense. I mean, come on. Really? Yeah, as if the Kansas City Royals are going to pick up the phone. Hey, Juan, do you want to be a part of the Royals? Never. But for Alonso to do that, and it's his right, I get it. But geez, could you have waited a few more minutes? But here's the problem. I'm sure his agent got in his ear, similar to what he did to Garrett Cole after they lost the World Series against the Nationals in 2019, to where his agent probably said, you know what, let the world know you're going to be a free agent. And chances are we're not going to come back here. Although he said the right things. I love New York, the fans, the energy, this team, my teammates, the organization, the staff, the people. Out. Guess what? And Pete Alonso's been a good Met. And yeah, he broke the record, Strawberry, etc. He can hang his head on that, where Soto's going to eviscerate that, by the way. Obviously, he's got 14 more years here, and even though he could opt out after 4 years, but who knows about that? That's for down the road. But lastly, if Alonso wants to go, fine. And in closing, I promise, 60 seconds or less. I don't want to hear any more. Go back to my Major League Baseball preview. I don't want to hear about fast starts. I don't want to hear about slow starts. I don't want to hear about tremendous starts. Going into next year, I don't care. I just want the Mets to be consistently good. That's it. 2 years ago, they got off to a terrible start, 24-35. We know what happened. Game 6 of the NLCS. This year, they had the best record on June 13th, 21 games over 500. What happened? I don't want to hear about it. Next year, the Mets got to go off to a good start. Zip it. Well, if the Mets will have a big year, they need to have the start they had last year. Zip it. Well, if the Mets get off to a bad start in 2024, zip it. Or 2023, zip. Nope, that's it. I rest my case with this Met team. Now, playoffs. I know, let's get into it. For starters, I'll go by the matchups. Detroit, Cleveland. This is an enormous start for Tarek Skubal. He's going to be a free agent after next year. He's a guy that's going to command big-time money. And we saw what he did last Tuesday, as I talked about on the podcast Thursday. He's got to go out there and not unravel the way he did there in the game Tuesday night, which was in essence a playoff game. And I think he's going to bounce back. I can see them being 0-1. I don't think the Guardians would panic, but I'm going to say the Tigers win in 3. Now, there haven't been many 3-game series in this new wildcard format. In fact, it's only happened twice. Of course, the Mets were involved in both times, losing to the Padres in 2022 and winning last year against the Brewers, as you all know. But I'm going to say 3 games. I'll give the Guardians a little dat. But I would have to think, if you're AJ Hinch, you're now 0-0. And what I would be preaching to those people in that locker room, we didn't come this far only to come this far. And if we want to get back at the Guardians for what they've done to us the last 2 weeks, sweeping them in Detroit 2 weeks ago and taking 2 out of 3 and the division from us last week, now we can get the ultimate revenge. That's the things that I would address in that locker room as of yesterday in Fenway, or certainly tomorrow before game 1 o'clock. And the Guardians, I'm sure they're going to put up a good fight. And they're going to play small ball and try to take advantage, etc. And that Tiger hitting, that could be hit or miss, hot and cold. I get it. But Skubal, he's going to have to put forth 7 innings minimum. Get me to the 8th, and I understand you got to deal with Will Vest and cross your fingers closing the game. But if I'm Tarek Skubal, I'm throwing 120 pitches tomorrow. That's it. And I'm telling my manager, you're not taking me out. I'm taking us at least through this game 1 to put the pressure on them, and let's come out in game 2 and steal the series. That's number 1. Number 2, San Diego, Chicago. I know this is the Cubs' first time here since, I believe, 2020 when they got swept by the Marlins during that pandemic season. I don't know how I feel about the Cubs. I don't. I know that their pitching is good, and I believe they're going to start Matthew Boyd. No, they could start Imanaga tomorrow, I would think. I should have looked at the pitching matchups prior to. My apologies, people. But how I look at it is that San Diego, I'm a little bit more trustworthy in them. In fact, I haven't even decided who their starter is right now. And the same for the Guardians. They don't have a starting pitcher just yet. Now, San Diego starting Nick Pivetta. It's not Yu Darvish or Dylan Cease. But Pivetta's had a good year. And that game's on ABC. All the games are on ESPN. Why they pick that game for ABC? I understand Chicago maybe the Cubs. But I'm a little bit more trusting of the Padres here. They know their way around the postseason. I know that they've been flying under the radar for the most part, although they've tried to get close to the Dodgers at times, but the Dodgers have beaten them and obviously went away winning a division. I just like the Padres here. I like their experience, And I get it that they're a team that you can't really trust either. Look, last year they had a 2-1 lead against the Dodgers, and they didn't score a run the final 2 games of that series. And I understand that's last year, that's not this year. But how I look at it is the Padres, I just have a better feel for than the Cubs. And I just watched the Cubs last week. And although they've had their moments where they scored a ton of runs in the middle of the season, but I really don't fully trust their lineup. The Ian Happs, the Dansby Swansons, the Seiya Suzuki's, guys like that. And again, this is the first time in the playoffs in a while. I know Swanson could be that veteran presence there who won a World Series in Atlanta. But to me, I just like the Padres here. Now, Red Sox, Yankees, you know, this isn't going to be like 03-04 or years past. Now we know about the rivalry, etc. But let me get at the Yankee fan here for a second before I even talk about the series. Oh, no, you know what? I'll save that. Hang on just for a couple of minutes. Let me talk about the series first, and let me talk about the Yankee fans. Because I don't troll you sons of bastards, but I'm going to start doing that right now. And for good reason and measure. But this series, now, I'm a little conflicted because if the baseball gods are going to look down on the series and they're going to remember what happened the last time the Yankees had a game of meaning, and in this case, the World Series Game 5, they may shun on them to say, all right, we're going to give you a reversal of fortune considering that the Red Sox beat you in 04 in just dramatic and historic fashion. They beat you in 18, where in a 4-game series, and in Game 3, they beat them 16-1, where I believe Brock Holt had the hit for the cycle. And 2021 up in Fenway, where Garrett Cole melted like hot butter on a skillet and gave up a home run to Kyle Schwarber, which I believe is still going. It's probably in Nova Scotia at this point. So now I believe maybe the tide will turn. Maybe the baseball gods will be like, all right, the Red Sox have had enough success against the Yankees in the postseason dating back 21 years ago, so now it's going to turn. But at the same time, I trust Garrett Crochet tomorrow night to go 7 innings, 1 run, 4 hit, 12 strikeout ball, leave with a 3-1 lead. Maybe they tack on a run or two, and then Aroldis Chapman, who you know wants to stick it to his former team, gets the save, and then the Yankee fan has to hold their breath. Although he's had a good year, very good year, but now your season, your baseball lives are going to be in the hands, the left one in this case, of Carlos Rodon. We saw what happened last year, Game 2 of the World Series, and it could possibly happen tomorrow where you could be extinct as of Wednesday night, maybe, 9:30, 10 o'clock? Because I believe that game on Wednesday will be the same bat time, same bat channel. So I'm a little conflicted. Now, do I think the Yankees can win this series? Of course. I mean, I'm not going to be stupid to think they can't. Do I think they will win this series? Ugh. I'm going to say this. I don't think they're going to win this series, but I will say if they do win, they're going to win the next round and they're going to play in the LCS. So I'm going to give you that. I'm going to say the Red Sox win. I won't say sweep, but I'm going to say 3 games. Now, I don't really trust Brian Bayo. I know he's pitched well-ish against the Yankees, and who knows? It's Bayo and Rodon. I don't know the Game 3 starter. I guess it's going to be Luis Hill pitched yesterday, I believe. Your Game 3 starter, I mean, it can't be Will Warren. I mean, I know I'm drawing blanks right now with this Yankee rotation because, of course, Max Fried's pitching tomorrow night. And I would think Lucas Giolito is going to pitch Game 3, if you ask me. But the Yankee rotation, I would have to think, let me be smart about this, all right? Because for whatever reason, I'm just drawing a big fat blank as far as who that Game 3 starter, because I know it's not going to be him, Will Warren. And I know they're not going to pull off a bullpen game, to say the least. So I would have to think that the third starter for the Yanks right now, it's not Cam Schlittler. And you got to also make who's going to make the roster, which I believe the roster by 4 o'clock has to be sent in, or maybe it's tomorrow. No, it's got to be, I'm sure, today. Who your Game 3 starters up in the air? And I got news for you. I'm going to trust Giolito more than that Yankee Game 3 starter. Because it's not going to be Luis Hill. Because he did pitch yesterday. Let me just double check that. Because, again, I want to make sure I'm accurate here. I don't want to be taken out of context. Because I remember when I was in the establishment that I was in yesterday, yes, I was correct. Luis Hill did pitch yesterday. So now, I'm going to think Yankees. I think Red Sox will win the series 3 games. But again, if they do win the series, I'm going to predict them to win the next series. And we'll see what happens from there. Now, as far as the Yankee fan goes, I understand you want to mock the Met fan and the franchise and Juan Soto, etc., etc. All right, fine. Cool. You could do that. But I will say this. I'm sure your chests are puffed out right now. I'm sure you're feeling good about your team. You won 94 games this year. You've won 8 in a row and 11 of 13, and you're rolling into October, or even late September, because game 1 is tomorrow, September 30th. And I'm sure you're feeling good. But yeah, you can beat up on the White Sox all you want. You can beat up on the Baltimore Orioles all you want. You can beat up on the Washington Nationals. You can beat up on the Minnesota Twins. Now, it is a whole different beast. And I'm not trying to say the Red Sox are the 2018 Red Sox and the Mariners are the 2001 116 win in the regular season, although the Yankees spanked them in the ALCS, as we all know. And yes, you're not going up against the 92-93 back-to-back Toronto Blue Jays. I understand. It is wide open, as we all know. And when we talk about the storylines, and I understand I haven't unpacked that, but when it comes to October, the Yankees are now going to face a much different level of competition. So with that said, you can talk about all you want. Oh, we're flying high. Oh, we're the big brother. Ha ha to the Yankees. Just remember these 3 things. 1, I already gave you the reminder. Carlos Rodon is your game 2 pitcher if you lose tomorrow night. And the likelihood of you losing is rather high. Max Fried, I understand, he's won a World Series, been around the block. I get it. But Max Fried is not. He's been up and down here over these last few weeks. Number 1. Number 2, and I kind of hinted this before, the ghosts of Aaron Judge, I should say. Aaron Boone, I'm going to get to in a second. I tipped my hand already, damn it. The ghost of Aaron Judge dropping that ball, Game 5, last year's World Series, is still in the building. The ghost of Garrett Cole pointing at first base on the Mookie Betts ground ball to Anthony Rizzo is still in the building. The ghosts of Anthony Volpe's throw the third, which I won't put too much on, but still a play that was instrumental in that 5th inning, is still in the building. And Yankees losing a World Series, Game 5, those ghosts still in the building. Got a lot of demons to exercise there. And oh, by the way, Aaron Judge on the Yankee, I love this, on the Yankee homepage on their Instagram or whatever it was, where they had all the slides of Aaron Judge. Oh, the American League batting champion this year at 331. Oh, he hit 53 home runs, blah, blah, blah. His F4 was this. His OPS was that. Monster numbers by Judge, regular season, so on and so forth. He's probably going to be the MVP. And in the final slide said, you be the judge. But Yankees, whoever does your social media, you forgot one very important statistic that you left off of that slide. Aaron Judge's postseason career batting average is a paltry 205. He is 5 points away from the Mendoza line with a zillion strikeouts to boot. And Garrett Crochet is going to be the guy he's going to face in Game 1. That smells like a golden sombrero, if you ask me. And yes, he has had success. He did hit that home run in Fenway in the 9th inning to tie the game before they lost. I get it. But Aaron Judge in the postseason is certainly no lock. And then lastly, so number 1, the ghosts. Number 2, the Aaron Judge. Well, that tied in, right? And now, your manager. Aaron Boone is your manager, people. Do I need to remind you last year, Nestor Cortez, Game 1, where that should have been Tim Hill, and how he botched up that whole bullpen game, where, in essence, they lost the World Series? And I understand he's with Brian Cashman. Everything I talked about earlier with the Mets, the Yankees had that same brain trust of, let's try to forecast the game 3 hours, 4 hours before it actually begins with, all the analytics and the matchups and this and that. So Aaron Boone is not Joe Torre. Aaron Boone is not Joe McCarthy. Aaron Boone is far from Miller Huggins. So Yankee fans, you can brag, boast, talk all the garbage you want. Take it 27 rings and you shove it where the sun doesn't shine. I can't even speak because I'm just where the sun does not shine. Because karma never forgets an address. So as quick as you want to troll me, it may be as soon as, fingers crossed, Wednesday night. Because could you imagine if the Yankees lose tomorrow in game 1 and then for whatever reason lose game 2? And oh, by the way, I'm back on the podcast Thursday. Even if I'm not on the podcast, if the Yankees win or if they go to a game 3 and they lose that night, I have my message. And I posted a message on my YouTube channel earlier. But I have my message. And I've been saying this message for the last 15 years. And I can only hope to the baseball gods it'll be a 16th, a sweet 16, I might add, if the Yankees do not get out of this series or this postseason alive with a championship. Because if that's the case, to put it bluntly, I got something for your ass. And it's sweet, yet sharp, and at the same time, succinct. Yeah, and as far as the storylines, I know I didn't even get into that because I got carried away with the Mets. And I'll just say this real quick, and I'll get into the other sports because I got to do that and also talk about Cincinnati and LA. And I'm going to start there. LA, the repeat, that's storyline number 1 if you ask me. Because we know that their regular season kind of sleptwalked, kind of waiting for this moment. Now let's see how they respond. We know that their bullpen has been in shambles. Let's see if their rotation could deliver. Is Ohtani going to be a part of that? I don't think so. They haven't even announced who your starters are for not even just game 1. Which to me, I mean, come on. Can we at least get game 1? Right now, everything's undecided. Both Reds and Dodgers. You would think it's going to be Hunter Green versus Yoshinobu Yamamoto. But how this Dodger trajectory is going to be interesting. That's number 1. To me, the second storyline are the teams here in this wild card. I'm not going to talk about the teams that are not playing. That I'm going to save for Thursday's podcast. The second storyline is that the Yankees, will the real Yankees please stand up? Is it the Yankees we've seen here over the last 2 weeks with the bully offense beating up on the dregs of baseball? Or are the fundamentals and the untimely hitting and the bullpen implosions, with the bullpen, it's been great now because, again, they're playing 4A caliber players. What Yankee team's going to show up? Is it going to be a team that's going to go on a roll and a much different course than last year where they literally had the red carpet and rose petals to a World Series? Or are they going to be a one and done or a team that's going to fizzle up and smoke with bad base running, with awful fundamentals, and Aaron Judge striking out and giving the Yankee faithful out at the stadium some extra air conditioning for some rather seasonable warm weather approaching tomorrow and Wednesday at the Snake Pit on 161st and River Avenue. That's right, I called it a Snake Pit. I told you, I'm spicy, people. I do not give you-know-whats. So that's storyline number 2. And the third storyline, I would have to think, it's a combination. Forget about the Reds. I'm not even going to discuss them. I mean, it's going to be a waste. And Cubs-Padres, I ain't going to be... to me, it's the Tigers. For what they did in the regular season, and they had a big 25 games over and a big lead, they squandered it. Can they now exact revenge and maybe get their equilibrium to have a deep playoff run? Now, last year they got to a Game 5 in the division series, but remember, they had that great conclusion, 1 to 2 games in Houston before losing in 5. Now, can they right the ship, beat the Guardians, and then whomever they play in the next round actually get themselves in a series somewhere they could win and then advance from there? Because if they don't get out of this first series alive, it's almost as if they look like frauds. So, and I know to my guy, Jay in Michigan, and I'm sure he's going to feel the same way. He calls Tarek Skubal Tarek Price, like David Price, when they got him for the one time in Detroit. And we saw what he did, and he got the big payday in Boston, as we know. So, just putting that out there. So, those are, to me, are the big wildcard storylines. Now, as far as Reds and Dodgers, to me, is this Dodger bullpen going to show up? The Reds have no offense. They do have good starting pitching. And do I really think that they're going to be able to hang there with the Dodgers? Can they? They're going to have to play from in front. And I mean, kind of like the Diamondbacks did in the divisional series 2 years ago, where they jumped on Clayton Kershaw 6 runs in the first inning. They do that to the Dodgers. They may not be able to take that punch, and who knows if they can recover. Now, if they get off to a 1-0, 2-0, they got to really throw a right cross and maybe an uppercut to really daze the Dodgers to think that, to get them on their heels. But I think this is going to be Dodgers 2-game series. Kaput, that's that. And if I didn't give you a game or series, I'm going to say San Diego wins in 2. I didn't think I gave you a prediction on that, and that's my apologies. So to recap quick before I move on to football and other things, because I know I've spent 45 minutes just talking about baseball. Tigers in 3, Padres in 2, Red Sox 3, Dodgers 2. That is your wild card round as I move it along. My apologies for just expounding a lot on baseball. I'm sure you're probably like, JAYREELZ, come on, enough. I want to get to the NFL. And like I said earlier, I gave you my warning. I didn't spend a lot of time on football, and let me give you a reason why. And I think this is good enough you can understand. And you can say, damn, JAYREELZ, bad job on your part. That's fine. I'll own up to that. No doubt. But I watched the Steeler game yesterday, 9:30 to 12:30. And then I went to brunch with my sister-in-law, her boyfriend, my wife, because a little post-birthday celebration. Again, her birthday was on Saturday. So the middle part of my day, yeah, I try to follow here and there. Jackson Dart wins his first start. Good for him. The Chargers, that West Coast to East Coast is real, as you saw there. And look what the Seahawks did 2 weeks ago when they went to Pittsburgh. They got there Friday, and they won a game in Pittsburgh where the Chargers 3-0 puffed up at humble pie back to LA 3-1, and Jackson Dart in his first ever start actually gave you a little something. Did he like to run on fire? No. Rushed for a touchdown, threw a touchdown, and hung in there. I mean, what could you say? But he did show you signs, and maybe, who knows? Now they go to New Orleans, they got to win there. Now they got to face the Eagles, Broncos, and Eagles in 3 straight weeks. And I believe they have a bye after the Saint game. I got to double check that. But so far, so good for the Giants. I'll put that to rest. But during the middle part of the day, or latter part of the day, because I'm watching the Mets, I'm locked in. Come on. NFL gets pushed aside, stiff-armed. I don't care what's happening. So therefore, and then after that, I posted a live. The 4 o'clock games, they were a blur to me. Even the Ravens, which I'm going to get to next, even them at 1-3. And yes, I'm basking in their misery right now. Now, I understand they had a ton of injuries yesterday, 5 starters left, including a lot on that offense, Lamar Jackson included. And he left in the third quarter. But again, whether it's Buffalo, whether it's Kansas City, they can't seem to get over the hump with those guys. They just cannot. Baltimore, that is. But I will say, before I get into the NFL a little bit further, the 4 o'clock games are a blur, and some of the 1 o'clock games I'm like in and out because, again, and I understand the Met game started at 3, and some of the 1 o'clock games I followed, but then once it was Mets, that was it. So this is going to be kind of a quick recap of NFL Week 4. Now, I know Seattle beat Arizona the other day, that Thursday night game, which the ending was great. And I hate to say it, there could be 3 seconds left on the clock and the game is tied or a team is up by a field goal. I still won't trust it because there's going to be a kicker that's going to kick an 80-yard field goal. To me, it's just a shame how these kickers are, they're like chip shots, these 50-yard field goals. It's incredible when you watch it. And you saw that a little bit there yesterday. But with Seattle, Arizona, it was a terrible game. 17-3 late, 20-6. You're thinking the game's over. Arizona made a big comeback. They made it interesting. And then Seattle kicks a game-winning field goal. Jason Myers, you go home. And as I mentioned, the Thursday night games are just an atrocity. Oh, yeah, now I'm watching this highlight here, which is crazy about Malik Neighbors. And I know that is a devastating blow. Looks like torn ACL, done for the year for the LSU wide receiver, who obviously could be a big-time pro. And you're not going to see him for the rest of this year and maybe the early part of next. So your NFL, not going to be a healthy recap. I could trim fat right now. New England beats Carolina. Big-time game. Carolina shows you nothing. New England bounces back from that 5-turnover performance against Pittsburgh. They put up 42 against the Panthers. Houston, that was my pick for the knockout pool. What did I tell you? Rookie quarterback going in, Cam Ward. Doesn't like what he sees, but he points the finger at himself. Texans put up a donut down in H-Town. They win 26-0. The Cowboy game last night, I know Micah Parsons got a sack there that stopped Dak Prescott from getting into the end zone to kick the field goal. The game ends in a tie, and that is a perfect example. They kick a field goal there, or they get the touchdown. It was 37-34. And what happens? With 23 seconds left, George Pickens, and then they kick the game-time field goal. What was that, from 50-something? Let me pull that up, people. You know, I got to be accurate. Brian McManus, 53 yards. And they did it with, in the blink of an eye. These kickers, their legs must be bionic. And it's got to be the ball, people. That's all there is to it. The ball must be made with something in there that gives it just an extra oomph. Kind of like if you put the old, small, the Super Bowls, the ones that you bounce and go 9,000 feet up in the air, and you saw off the top of the bat, and you put a hole in it, and you put those 3 Super Bowls in there, and then you saw it off, and next thing you know, you give an extra oomph to the baseball. Well, that must be in the football, because these guys are kicking field goals in their sleep, 53, 55, 60, 61. It's incredible. But the Cowboys, Packers ended up in a tie. What can you say about that? Now, here are the games that I'm just going to go through. I know the Rams beat the Colts. Colts look like they showed you a lot. And the Rams with Matthew Stafford throwing for 375. And they get the late touchdown catch to win 27-20. And the Colts look like to be a team. Who knows? Can they make some hay in the AFC? Maybe, because they played well here. They were 3-0 before losing a close one there out in SoFi. And the Rams bounced back from that tough loss in Philly. Bears in Vegas. Does anybody care? I guess with Caleb Williams, he seemed like he played well. They got a blocked field goal to preserve the Bears from coming back. They were down the game, what? Yeah, not big. Actually took a lead in the third quarter. They were down 21-16 at one point. They came back to win 25-24 with a late touchdown. All right, kudos to the Bears as they've won back-to-back games. And the Raiders, I thought they were going to be much better considering Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, but they've regressed. They're not, 1-3 to get their season started. And like I mentioned, Kansas City, Baltimore. Let's talk about that real quick. Lamar Jackson, it's all on that hamstring. I don't know if it's week to week. I don't know if he's going to be out more than that. If it's IR, listen, Cooper Rush, serviceable quarterback. We saw what he had done in Dallas behind Dak Prescott. But you talk about Super Bowl aspirations, you can forget it. If he's going to be on the show for 4 weeks and they're 1-3 and end up, I don't know, let's say, do the math, 2-6, 2-7, something like that, forget it. He could come back with a cape and all the superpowers, Lamar Jackson, and that's still not going to be enough, because we know in huge games, he doesn't seem to win the big one. Just look at the 3 games that they lost. Tough schedule to start, I get it. I know they had the Browns in week 2, but you got to go to Buffalo on a Sunday night. Well, let's face it, they should have won the game. They had no business losing. Then they lose to the Lions. Terrible performance by their defense. And then yesterday, obviously with Lamar out, he threw a bad interception in the first half, up 7-3, which I believe led to a field goal. But yeah, another putrid performance by their defense, by the Raven offense. I understand Ronnie Stanley and a lot of guys on that offense were hurt and left the game, and who knows what their status is going to be moving forward. But if you're a Raven fan, and to you, Kaji Ismail, I have a lot of respect for, with your meanwhile in Baltimore or meanwhile in wherever when you're trolling the Steelers. I understand you're going to troll the Steelers, but the minute, and I did come out at him last year with the whole Mark Andrews and whatever, and he didn't say anything. But, of course. When they're front running, just like the team is, and no knock on you, Kaji, but that's just, But when you're front running, I told you, I'm feisty, people. When you want to front run and be like, hey, when the Steelers lost to the Seahawks, meanwhile in Pittsburgh and all this other stuff, all right, you want to start getting a little spicy yourself? Fine. But your team was supposed to be going to a Super Bowl, now are in the basement with the Browns in the AFC North. Oof. You don't want to mess with me today. Not today, people. And it's only going to get worse. There's still more to come. And I know, look, I'm spending all this time here. Philly at Tampa Bay. Listen, Philly, the fake tush push, boy, that was one we did not see coming. Brilliant play call there. And that was what I think it was at 24-13, which really put the icing on the game. But the Eagles are the Eagles. They went down there, a place where they've lost last year, and they also lost in the playoff games, the year prior. But Eagles looking stout. I know they're not a punishing team, a dominant team with a dominant defense and a dominant offense. I know that's just what you can't defend, but they just keep winning. I mean, what more can you say about them? They just keep winning. I know Buffalo and New Orleans, I saw at one point that it was 21-19, if I'm not mistaken, where I thought, wait a minute, how are the Saints in this game? But Buffalo pulled away, no surprise there, as I'm sure they probably played down to their opponent, but they won going away. Atlanta beating Washington, as they did there yesterday in Atlanta, and now they cannot, they're waiting for Jaden Daniels, and he could be back as early as this week. And Penix had a good game. Mariota, not too bad either. Let me just see here with any late turnovers. Yeah, but Penix had, threw for over 300 yards, and Bijan Robinson had a big-time day. Not really. He said he had career days when he rushed for 75 yards. But anyway, and of course, with no Jaden Daniels and company, the Falcons were able to win there down in the ATL. What else I haven't covered? Jacksonville winning in San Francisco. That's a big win. I know Brock Purdy coming back from the 2-week layoff, or about 2.5 or whatever it was, how many weeks he was out with those toe and shoulder injuries. But Purdy, although put up nice numbers, but he had a couple of big interceptions. There was a late fumble there as the Niners were trying to see if they could go down the field to get the go-ahead score, but they didn't do so. So the Jaguars now 3-1. Got to take them seriously a little bit. I guess we have to a certain extent, but they are the Jaguars, and they play in a very bad division. But they're tied with the Colts there, so a race to look at in the AFC South. And then the Tigers. The Lions took care of the Browns there, although the Browns had a 7-0 lead early, but Detroit was able to stand on business there in the Motor City and win that game. And then lastly, the game in Dublin. Steeler defense had a bunch of sacks, 6 sacks. They were relentless there, pretty much like the middle of the second quarter on. Carson Wentz did have a good game number-wise to start off. He did throw up a couple bad interceptions, and then for whatever the reason, Mike Tomlin was doing anything he could to give this game back to the Vikings. At 24, what was it? They had a 24-6 lead in the fourth quarter. All right, the Vikings came back, scored a touchdown, 24-14. He had the ball in the shadow of the goal line. 4th and goal, I believe it was at the 4. Now, Kenneth Gainwell had a big game on the ground. 19 carries, 99 yards, had 2 touchdown runs. But for whatever the reason, he decided to go left tackle. It's not as if Kenneth Gainwell's built like Jerome Bettis, but decided to go left tackle, got stopped at the 2, 1.5. All right, fine. And I can understand why you're going to pin him back there, because at the time it was maybe about 7 minutes to go. So therefore, okay, whatever. But then you had a busted play on defense where you got a big chunk there up the sideline, and then next thing you know, they're punching it in, and they make it a game. It's now 24-21. So that backfired by trying to not get the touchdown. And even though you pinned the Viking offense all the way back there and with their pass rush, etc., but they went down the field, punched it into the end zone. So now the Steelers have the ball back, recover the onside kick. So you're thinking, all right, get a first down, you go home. But then what happens is 3rd and 1, he runs the same play. Similar. 3rd and 1. I understand you're not going to get cute. I understand there's no trickeration. But did you have to rush Gainwell again there on the 3rd and 1 where they get stopped and then they tried to draw him off sides? They punted the ball. Now, granted, they still had to go to the length of the field, no timeouts. But still, you put yourself in a hairy position. To me, if you kick the field goal there at 27-14, they got to get 2 touchdowns. Not a touchdown and a field goal. And as it was, I was shocked that on 4th and goal, where the Steelers had a goal line stand, that he could have kicked the field goal there to make it 24-17. But Kevin O'Connell, very aggressive. He did a little naked flip bootleg. He rolled out, and he got a guy wide open. I think it was Jordan Mason. Got the touchdown. And he would have been killed if they didn't convert on that, because even at 4th and goal, where the Steelers made a tremendous stand, if he would have kicked the field goal there and he had his timeouts, you could have kicked the ball off, try to get the ball back, where I understand getting a touchdown is not as easy, but you have the Steelers defense on your heels. As it was, they got the touchdown, 24-21, But if you kick the field goal there to make it 27-21, although they got a field goal blocked earlier there where the Steelers had 14-3, and that's when they got the field goal to make it 14-6. But, yeah, Tomlin coached just terribly there. But they were able to get out of Dodge and able to be 3-1. And DK Metcalf had a big game, had that big, long touchdown, 80 yards. And the defense had a ton of sacks. Skylar Thompson, sadly, got robbed and was injured there, I believe, Friday night in Dublin. So, for what that's worth. But the Steelers survive. No style points. They come back and have a bye this week as they chose to take it now and not have to deal through the remaining, Week 5. The remaining 13 weeks after that without a game off. And you know they're not going to get the 1 seed in the conference. So, there you have it with the Steelers. And tonight you have the 2 games. Jet Dolphins at 7:15. Cincinnati at Denver 8:15. And you know I hate the Monday night doubleheader, the doubleheaders, not to belabor that point. So, yeah, pick your poison because both of those games, in my eyes, are awful. But I guess I got to watch because there's no baseball until tomorrow. All right, now let me get to, I'm going to zip through this, people, because, before I even get to that, I have to bring this up. So the Super Bowl halftime act has been announced. And for those out there who were a little skeptical about the Kendrick Lamar halftime show and how that was going to unfold, and I know there was a lot of vitriol towards, and listen, I'm not a big Kendrick Lamar fan. Go back to the Super Bowl or the day after the Super Bowl when I talked about it. I got no ill will towards Kendrick Lamar, etc., but and I like some of his earlier stuff. The recent stuff, I could care less. To me, does nothing for me. I digress. But now Bad Bunny's going to be your halftime host or show. I wonder how America's going to take that. Because A, you're not going to hear a lick of English. B, maybe toward the end, he may say, thank you, which could be the only thing he may say that's of English. This is the year of Bad Bunny. And I'm not a big Bad Bunny fan. I know Puerto Rican, etc., from New York, not from the island. I'll just put that out there. I like the last album that he put out. A lot about the culture, a lot about the island, a lot about the feel. I'm with that. I've kind of vibed to that a little bit. Have I downloaded it, purchased it, etc.? I have not. So this is coming from a guy who, prior to this album, and I couldn't even name all the songs on the album. There's a couple that if I listen to, hey, he's got catchy hits as we know, or you may not know, whatever. But my point in saying all this is that I'm not breaking out the Bad Bunny pom-poms. I like him as an individual, as an artist, he's a performer, he's dynamic, he's got it all. He is, right now, on top of the world. If 2025 is the year of any artist, it's him. Album, he's going to host SNL to start off the 51st season, and now he's going to host the Super Bowl. But I wonder how the rest of America, maybe even the world for that matter, is going to react to that. Because, boy, if the Kendrick Lamar, what is this Crip Walk nonsense, and what is it, the message that he's putting forth, I wouldn't know what Kendrick Lamar is if he fell on him, or if you thought that was a pleasant sight, hold my medalla light, because you may not have seen anything yet come Super Bowl Sunday when he performs at the Levi's Stadium there, halftime, at Santa Clara. I'll just leave it at that. College football, real quick. And understand, I can't get into these games that I didn't watch. It was all on Saturday. Trinidad Chambliss, one of the great names in sports. Big win over the Tigers. Ole Miss, what can you say? I think they moved up to 3 in the rankings now. So congratulations to them. LSU, Brian Kelly, I guess that's karma from the week before, talking about how, they're running plays at the end of the games and all that, and he sniped toward the press. Well, I guess he got a bit of a comeuppance there. That's number one. Number 2, Penn State. I know you came from behind. You were down, 17-7, and you went to 2 overtimes. And Drew Aller, he is not a big-time quarterback. I understand he has some ability, and he can make plays, but the interceptions in overtime, and again, I understand they came from behind, give him credit, etc., but he is not big time. He isn't. And I'm not saying that just based on his performance. Go back to the game against Notre Dame last year in the semifinal. Go back to the championship game, Big Ten against Oregon. 35-27, they had the ball. And they were driving in Oregon territory. What happened? Nothing. Didn't do anything. This is why he's not big time. And I watched that. So you can tell me, well, JAYREELZ, you didn't watch the game the other day, so you can't call on it. All right, you're right. But just like the Mets, I've seen that movie before. Yesterday, 2007, 2008, Drew Aller, I've seen that movie before. Last year against Notre Dame and the championship game in the Big Ten weeks prior to that. So show me something different, Drew Aller, and then I can say, wow, he rose to the occasion against big teams. And what did James Franklin say in the postgame? I take full ownership, which means they're good, but they're not good enough. That's number 2. And number 3, that is an enormous win by Kalen DeBoer. Is it the end-all be-all? It is not. Because they still have LSU down the road, which I'm sure they're going to want to relish, and I can believe that game is at LSU, which is always going to be a tough matchup. But that was enormous. Ty Simpson, great game. They played from ahead the whole game. First time Georgia lost at home in 6 years. And obviously they beat them last year with Jalen Milroe, that crazy game where they were up 30-7 at the half, and they came storming back Georgia, and they ended up winning. And what could you say? Georgia, I don't want to say they were a no-show, but certainly did not live up to what we thought Georgia was going to do here in this game yesterday. And going to Stockton, obviously you want to see more. Yes, you like his gumption. You like the guy has guts. He's tough, whatever, but you got to do better. That was a game that I'm sure you're hearing throughout campus. You're hearing whispers. Now, was it all on him? Should I just pin it completely on the quarterback? Absolutely not. Wait, why is this pulling up on my thing? I digress. But still, if you're Georgia and you circled that game on the schedule when it first came out, when you go 13 for 20, all right, percentage not bad, 130 yards, you know that the defense of Alabama did something towards that. And like I said, Ty Simpson obviously had a very good game and anticlimactic there late, even though the scoring there midway through the third quarter was pretty much it. But it just goes to show you that Alabama came to play, and not that Georgia didn't, and they knew. I'm sure they probably played for their coach knowing that if they would have went in there, got embarrassed, or let's say lost convincingly, 31-21 or something along those lines, then DeBoer would have been on the hot seat. But now, this sets them up nicely. Because for Alabama, let me quickly look at their schedule forthcoming. Now, they host Vandy this coming week, at Missouri, Tennessee. These next 3 games are no joke. Then they have LSU down the road. South Carolina was falling apart, as we know. Oklahoma at home. And then, of course, the game, which is always the big one, at Auburn, which they always have trouble. Now, I would say always, but they always kill them in Tuscaloosa. But when they go to Auburn, different story. And last year, 2 years ago when they went there, that 4th and 31, 4th and goal from the 31-yard line, Jalen Milroe, remember that? They had to survive that in order to get out of that game alive. So that's always going to be a hotly contested matchup. And for Georgia, you go back to the drawing board. That's one that's going to stick to your ribs if you're Kirby Smart. I mean, that's all there is to it. I don't know what else to say. And that's what I have there with the college football. I'll be more dialed into it from now and weeks to come, etc. Again, Saturday was just a rough day for me. And I could read and watch as many highlights. And I didn't really go in on the highlights, people. So that's why, because it was a busy weekend, as I said from the top, one last apology with that. All right, now, you thought the spice was over? Hell no. Let me go rapid fire with these last 3 things. And then I'll sign off. I know it's been now an hour and 10 minutes. I know I swallowed it up and sucked all the oxygen out with the baseball. Ryder Cup. Everybody hyped this thing up. I heard so much Thursday afternoon, Friday before it actually started, from the Frank Nobelos of the world, the Rich Learners on the Golf Channel, all these prognosticators. Oh, this is the most anticipated Ryder Cup that we've seen in some time. It's in New York City, Bethpage Black, the course that obviously have had U.S. Opens and other big-time tournaments there. And, the U.S., Scotty Scheffler, and Bryson DeChambeau. And yes, I understand the Ben Griffins and the Cam Youngs and guys like that, but with the captain in one Keegan Bradley, and this is going to be a situation where they're going to be flying high. And usually with the home field advantage, they're going to kick some European ass. Well, day one was not good as the Europeans came out firing. And then Friday was a bloodletting. You talk about getting beat to the back of the woodshed to where they opened up a 7-point lead, the biggest deficit going into the final round yesterday. And at that point, I didn't even bother. And I understand the U.S. showed pride and they fought back and they tried to make it a competition. But guess what? I didn't watch one lick of it yesterday. How could I? Between the football and obviously the Mets, there's no way I was watching the World. I mean, listen, unless it was coming down to the wire, and maybe it did to a certain extent, but I didn't watch. Hell no. I'm not wasting my time. Yeah, I came out and said it, and that's as a golf fan. I'm putting up my proverbial middle fingers to you because I'm going to get to you next. But that was just a undressing, a beatdown. And I don't want to hear it. The Americans, those fans should have been booing that squad, or Keegan Bradley for that matter, because that was an all-time joke to have the biggest deficit going into Sunday where the Americans had no shot. And you saw what Rory did, Shane Lowry, and you knew they were relishing. I've even mentioned this on Thursday's podcast, the Captain Luke Donald, when he came out during the introductory press conference, etc., how, we're not here to play for money. We're here to not only compete, we're here to win. Pretty much throwing down the gauntlet to say, what you got, U.S.? And what they got was nothing. Scotty Scheffler was awful for him. Bryson DeChambeau was awful for him. Scotty Scheffler couldn't putt. I mean, it was just a debacle. And when you have Bryson DeChambeau going at it with Justin Rose, and their caddies pretty much nose to nose, because I think it was on hole 11 where he was going to putt Justin Rose. Like, wait a minute, what's going on here? I think it's my turn to putt, isn't it? And then they walk off and they're shouting at one another. Or for Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy to have to get on the fans' cases. And let me get to that right now. Who do you guys think you are? What are you, like the Northeast fan of New York, Philly, Boston? I understand you're in New York. But you guys are golf fans. Please, nobody wants to hear from you guys. And sadly, the MC of this whole shindig, Heather something, I don't even remember her last name, and I saw a video clip where she was trying to rile up the fan base Friday before tee-off by coming out saying, like, the name, instead of saying, like, Scotty Scheffler, she was doing it, like, all off tune and all off base to where the fans booed her. And then she had the audacity, I believe it was on Saturday, where she came out and said, come on, guys, let's start a chant towards Rory McIlroy. F you, Rory. What? That where before Sunday's final round, she said, you know what, guys, I'm out. I'm going to step down. Maybe it was mutual. Maybe the PGA said, you got to go. That's how bad it was with the fans. And then they had to bring in extra security because the fans were unruly, not only shouting at the European players, more particularly Rory, where they were probably going crazy for him when he won the Masters there 6 months ago. But now, let's get on Rory because you can't stand him because he's the enemy. On top of getting on his wife, I believe his name's wife's Erica, because there was supposed to be a divorce and a breakup going back to last year, and there were marital problems, so they had to throw those things directed towards Rory McIlroy. Soundly put, simply put, you guys are a freaking disgrace. You guys shouldn't be let allowed on a golf course ever, and I think 2 guys were ejected because of it. What an abomination. Now your golf fans want to puff out their chest like they're the almighty. Shut up. Nobody wants to hear from you guys. What golf fan goes to a tournament and they're going to start, flexing their muscles? Really? You guys are like, come on. You guys are pencil neck geeks. Seriously, I don't care. For real. And listen, you can say, JAYREELZ, let me get you on a golf course. Trust me, I'll probably hit it in the water on a ground ball to third base. So nobody's going to, listen, you can get at me all you want. These guys with their polo shirts and their hats bent and, having a Michelob Ultra, they think all of a sudden they have the bravado and, let me shout out at Rory. Again, you're probably the same guy that was hoping that Rory would have won at Augusta to get the career Grand Slam, and now you're cursing him out? Here are my middle fingers to you. You guys suck. And you guys are classless. You guys have no decorum. You guys should be ashamed of yourself. And one more time, it's not as if they're the NFL fan or the NBA fan. Not to say that sport's better than golf or whatever. But again, you're a golf fan. Seriously? That's like somebody like at a tennis tournament when they're getting on Novak Djokovic, and let's say they're saying whatever toward him. I mean, say, come on, pipe down. Take your tennis racket and go home. Just like you guys, take your golf clubs and shove it up your ass. Go home. Oh my God. Listen, you could be in an event. You want to say Rory sucks? I mean, again, and listen, I understand I'm an old man, but you want to say, go home, Rory. All right, fine. Cool. You can say that. All right, the Rory sucks. I'm sure he's heard it a million times. You're going to hear it a million more, whatever. But you're going to start saying F you, Rory, or you're going to start cursing toward his wife. Oh, why'd you stay? Or whatever. I don't know what was said. I'm just alleged. Oh, my God. I mean, forget it. You guys are hot stuff. You guys, you're just clueless, classless, boneheaded, don't know any better. And I hope this gets aggregated. I couldn't care less because, again, that is behavior that I do not respect and I certainly cannot condone. One more time. You want to boo? Go home, Rory. Rory sucks. All right. Fine. Anything north of that or worse, south of that, please. You're just being a fool. I'll leave that there. Now, WNBA, the Lynx, as I turn my attention to basketball, get on the hard court, and this is going to be quick. The Lynx, their big year. And understand, Game 3, a little controversy. To me, I didn't see any. Cheryl Reeve got ejected. She berated the officials on the court, off the court in the postgame, got suspended. Look at that. I don't think NBA coaches, I think they know better. Maybe the moment filled with anger, rage, got the best of Cheryl Reeve, the coach of the Minnesota Lynx. And remember, they had the best record in the sport. Looked like they were on their way to getting to a WNBA final. And I understand her ire, but that was not a foul. Where I believe it was Alyssa Thomas. She went in on Nafisa Collier, and Collier twisted her ankle, went crumbling down to the court, stole the ball. Game over. They win Game 4. No, excuse me, they win Game 3, and then yesterday they win Game 4. And they oust the Lynx there. So bye-bye for Minnesota in their big-time regular season. Those are the breaks. I mean, what are you going to do? But for Reeve, obviously out of line. For her to get suspended? I mean, geez, she must have took a sip of the crowd over at Farmingdale, Long Island at the Ryder Cup. She must have been drinking the Michelob Ultra of what they were drinking because that was just completely out of line. To see that she got suspended? Wow. So they're out, but you do have the Las Vegas Aces and Indiana Fever who won a Game 3 in their building, but then they tied the series. So you're going to have a Game 5, I believe, Tuesday, and I don't know when the WNBA final starts. It's probably going to start later in the week, which I'll talk about a little bit more. But they've had a great playoff. They're going to have a Game 5 here. Minnesota ousted. I'm sure they didn't want to see that. But Phoenix, obviously they've been the upstart here. They beat the Liberty in the opening round. And remember, the Liberty won Game 1, and they went to Brooklyn, and they beat them by 26. And then won a Game 3. And then now, here they are going to the WNBA final. And now we'll see who's going to be the winner, Indiana and Vegas, for the chance to meet up in the final there later on this week. And then lastly, as I lace up my skates, I said this when they won their back-to-back Stanley Cups, and now this could be, I don't want to go as far as saying a death knell, premature. When you lose your captain, Alexander Barkov, to an ACL and MCL injury, they didn't say torn, whatever, but he had to get surgery, and he's done for the year. 7 to 9 months is the recovery. And obviously the season starts a week from tomorrow, and I believe they raised the curtain in the first game. They'll get their rings, etc. I think they're playing the Bruins, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously we'll talk more hockey next week. I'll do a preview, over-unders, etc. But That is a huge blow, and you know you're not going to have Magic Kachuk until December. I get it that this team is more built for the playoffs because of their philosophy, their system, their relentless forechecking, etc. But when you lose your captain and you have your other guy that's out to December, you could see a slow start there. Now, it's the playoffs. They could be an 8th seed, and they could get to a cup final. So it's not to say they're not going to make the postseason, but just keep that in mind to know they lost their best, not their best player, but certainly their captain and most instrumental player. That is a huge blow. There's no other way to cut it. So let's see how that's going to pan out as we get into the regular season starting next week. And then you had Jamie Benn. He's going to miss 4 weeks after surgery on a collapsed lung. Obviously a longtime Dallas star. And Mason McTavish gets the big bucks in Anaheim, 6 years, $42 million, a signing there before the start of the season. That'll do it, my good people. I know that was a lot, and baseball took the brunt of it. My apologies. I had a lot to say, a lot to get off my chest. I appreciate you sticking it out. If you're still with me here, thank you so much for stopping by, carving out precious time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say about what goes on in the Detroit Department of Life called sports. And if you haven't done so, again, please subscribe, rate, review, throw me a few stars, Apple, Spotify. The website is JAYREELZ.com. YouTube channel at JAYREELZ, where you can watch the video of this, also on Spotify as well. Please share with your family, friends, foes, frenemies. Like I mentioned earlier, take a screenshot, share it with me, share with your family, friends, foes, frenemies, etc. Didn't I just say that? As I try to get this little engine I could. 710 subscribers, trying to get to 1,000, trying to generate income in doing what it is that I love. And if you couldn't tell over the last hour and 20 some odd minutes, then oof, I don't know what to tell you people. But I'll get to that in a second. So please support the channel, subscribe. I would sincerely appreciate it. And if you want to hit me up with a question, comment, suggestion, you can do so at the following: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the JAYREELZ Podcast, or JAYREELZ on Instagram. Twitter, JAYREELZ1, just the number. The old-fashioned way, the JAYREELZpodcast@gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals, because whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to do, people. If you couldn't tell, over this last hour and 20 some odd minutes, I just felt a sharp, did somebody like attack me here? Yeah, I'm saying this while I'm live. Oh my God, that was weird. Yeah, I had like a spasm that hit me in the top of my shoulder, and it was just one of those things where it's like somebody almost tapped me on the shoulder. Is that the universe? Is somebody trying to get at me? Who knows? Maybe for all the things that I've spewed here. But with that being said, this is what I love to do. In the blood and the DNA since birth. Where else are you going to get all this in one podcast? Where else are you going to get this passion, fire, energy, fury with my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens on the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to yours, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are, the JAYREELZ Podcast always comes correct, directed, in full effect. From the South Bronx, the South Beach, the South Center, the South Pacific, and all points beyond. Peace, love, and God bless everybody. And until next time on the JAYREELZ Podcast, on the flip, baby.